The U.S. losing its power? I think the answer is obviously yes, but this week Russia and China showcased it in a very big way. Let's start off with the war in Ukraine. Trump came into office promising he was going to get a peace deal, that we're going to see the end of the war. A lot of us champion this. The problem is it's not happening. In fact, Russia killed at least 12 people and injured 90 others in a massive attack on Kiev earlier today, prompting Trump to post this on his social media account. I am not happy with the Russian strikes on Kiev, not necessary and very bad timing. Vladimir, stop! 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done. Okay, so why has the peace deal not been done? Well, that is because actually Zelensky is also ignoring Donald Trump right now and basically saying, no deal. We don't like the deal that you've presented. We're not interested in it at all. So let's go over what that deal is. Let me just show you this map right here because this map kind of gives you an insight. It's a 7-point deal that the United States has proposed to Russia and to Ukraine. And it looks like Russia is amenable to this deal. It looks like they're like, yeah, okay, this looks good. This sounds like what we want. Zelensky, on the other hand, is saying, no way, we don't want it. We don't really want anything to do with this. So the 7 points of the deal, if you start off there on the number 1 dot there, this is from the Telegraph, UK Telegraph. Ukraine must abandon its claim to Crimea. Now, this one seems to be pretty straightforward to me, maybe even to you. Crimea has been in the control of Russia for over 10 years now. The Crimean people have voted numerous times to identify with Russia rather than Ukraine. They're Russian-speaking people. They're happy being under the control of Russia. If they're not going to be independent, which I think was probably their first goal was independence. If they're not going to be independent, they prefer to be with Russia than Ukraine. Ukraine wants it back. Tough luck on that one. The Crimean people don't even want to be back with you. But Ukraine is, and this is where it just goes to show that Zelensky's totally and completely unreasonable, because there is no reason for him to think that Russia's going to give Crimea back to Ukraine when Crimea has been under the control of Russia for so long. But that's the first point in the deal. Ukraine must abandon its claims to Crimea. Cessation, number 2, is cessation of all hostilities along the front lines. Everything in the red there is the front line. So we got to end, just an absolute ceasefire from the front line. Also, number 3, the U.S. will lift all sanctions imposed on Russia. That's a pretty big deal. Those sanctions have harmed the United States. It's harmed our industries, our energy, and lifting the sanctions would be a good thing, I think, also for the American people. And not only that, but what did they do to Russia anyway? Nothing. They did nothing to Russia. What's the point in keeping the sanctions? So the U.S. is saying, look, we'll give you this carrot. We'll lift the sanctions. Number 4, in the peace deal, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant will be transferred to the U.S., and the U.S. will begin energy cooperation with Russia. I don't really like this that much. Number 4 there on the map, you can see that is where the Zaporizhzhia, I'm not saying that correctly, Zaporizhzhia power plant, that is where it's located. And, I don't, why are we taking anything and controlling anything and using resources on that? I really just want us to get out of Ukraine entirely, but the administration wants to have some control and power. I mean, I get it. If we're going to spend all this money in a country, giving them loads of weapons, loads of aid, we want something for it. That's Trump's, his ideas. He wants a deal. And so we want the power plant. We also want the minerals. Okay. Number 5, direct negotiations between Ukraine and the Russian Federation without security guarantees. So they would need to negotiate with each other rather than using the United States as a mediator. And there would be no security guarantees for Ukraine. So the U.S. is saying, Trump administration is saying to Ukraine, saying to Zelensky, just forget about it. Forget about it. And also number 6 is you're not going to join NATO. So it's forget about NATO and forget about U.S.-backed security guarantees. So not only will you not be part of the big NATO alliance, but we as an individual nation, the United States, we're not going to come to your defense if something happens. So we're just going to get out of this entirely. And that is the one thing that is going to cause Ukraine to have to actually get along with its neighbor, is knowing that no one's going to come to the rescue. If they want to defend themselves, they're going to have to do it on their own. And then the last point in the agreement is the minerals agreement. Donald Trump wants that minerals deal where we get to siphon resources out of Ukraine and keep them basically a vassal state. So that is a 7-point deal. Putin has said, yeah, sure, that sounds good. Putin's main concern has been not allowing Ukraine to join NATO and not having a U.S. security guarantee for Ukraine. and also not Ukraine also not trying to claim territory that Russia's already annexed. So this pretty much suits a lot of what Russia's looking for. Now, some things that are missing from this deal, you don't see anything about the denazification. Personally, I've never liked that. I don't agree with the idea of trying to eradicate an ideology from groups of people. I don't think that you can. It's a goalpost that continually moves. You're never going to fully fulfill it because you can't change people's minds. So the denazification thing to me is that is just an excuse to further continue on waging war. This is what we see Democrats doing to Republicans, waging war against their ideology. We're now seeing some of that with Republicans against some Democrats when it comes to their particular ideologies. We see this with Israel and Gaza, right? There's these, your ideology's wrong, we need to wipe you out. That is not really realistic of a goal. So but the denazification, you notice, is not in the agreement. Another thing not in the agreement that Russia's been asking for is, for one, Ukraine would need to be neutral. This isn't really saying that. And this is also not demilitarizing Ukraine. And I think that's another really big one. We're not seeing that in this 7-point proposal that has been circulating out there in the media. So, but Russia seems to be amenable to this. Maybe they're willing to say, yeah, this is a good starting point. We need to talk a little bit further. But Ukraine, Zelensky has completely shut this down. And in the meantime, Putin hasn't seemed to, he's not stopping the onslaught on Ukraine. He's not slowing it down. He's not saying, well, we're kind of in discussions with the United States, so we're going to go ahead and, taper it down a little bit and do what Donald Trump wants. We're not seeing Putin thinking, well, I don't want to piss off Donald Trump and I don't want to piss off a peace deal, so I'm going to behave so that I don't piss him off. No, he's just giving him a big FU, saying we don't really care. If we get a peace deal done, great. If we don't, fine. We're marching forward the way that we planned on. And you're also seeing Zelensky showcasing that he too doesn't care. For whatever reason, he feels emboldened. And I think there's a big question there. Why does Zelensky feel so emboldened to be ignoring the requests of the United States when the United States has been giving them so much money and weapons? Is Ukraine thinking they could get the same money and weapons somewhere else? Do they feel like they do not need the United States? These are important questions. You and I might sit here and think, well, of course he needs the United States. But clearly the way he's behaving, unless he's a total and complete idiot, which he might be, sure, fair enough, there's some serious suspicion of there might be a separate plan that Zelensky has that he's been doing a deal with maybe the British to keep the war going. So curious, very curious on that front. But the big takeaway on this is Donald Trump is being ignored by Zelensky, who's just flat out ignoring the deal and saying no, and by Putin, who's not really caring what Donald Trump thinks about him and whether or not he seems to be kind of throwing a peace deal away. It doesn't seem like Putin cares. He's marching forward as he was without any consideration for what the U.S. wants or what the U.S. thinks or what the U.S. says. And that is that's saying something quite big. Now, Donald Trump has come out saying that he's pretty upset with Putin. This is before Putin. I believe that this clip right here is before Putin had actually bombed anything. And he's saying, yeah, I think Russia wants to come to a deal.
And if I can solve it because of a certain ability, that would be great. And if it doesn't happen, I will say that I think Russia is ready. And a lot of people said Russia wanted to go for the whole thing. And I think we have a deal with Russia. We have to get a deal with Zelensky. And I hope that Zelensky, I thought it might be easier to deal with Zelensky. So far it's been harder. But that's okay. It's all right.
Have you had
but I think we have a deal with both. I hope they do it because I'm looking to save. And, we spend a lot of money, but this is about a lot of humanity. This is the worst. I get the pictures, the satellite pictures. I've never seen anything like it of the fields after some of these battles. It's horrible that it's going for nothing. We would have never had this problem. You would have never had that war if I were president. I guarantee you that. And for 4 years, you didn't have it.
Who knows? Would we have had the war or not? We could certainly say no, we wouldn't have. But how could Trump have stopped what Russia's demands? How could he have said, okay, yeah, Ukraine will never be part of NATO when the other NATO countries are saying, yes, They will be part of NATO. The other NATO countries are trying to arm Ukraine and saying that they're going to send their own troops in. So how exactly are you going to deter? How would you have deterred that war? I mean, it's easy to say, right? It's easy to say because you can't prove it. So Trump also then, after Putin did still bomb Kiev and ignored Trump's pleas for, hey, keep it calm while we get this peace deal done, Trump then came out and said this about how unhappy he is with Putin.
In a Truth Social post, you used the words, Vladimir, stop. That seemed like a slightly different message, a personal message. What is your level of frustration with President Putin
I didn't like
at this
last
point?
night. I wasn't happy with it. And we're in the midst of talking peace, and missiles were fired. And I was not happy with it. That's what I meant, and that's,
Mr. President,
I assume that's what you mean.
Sorry,
Yeah.
if the bombs keep falling, will you consider additional sanctions toward Russia, or what will you do if President Putin does not
I'd rather answer
respond?
that question in a week. I want to see if we can have a deal. No reason to answer it now, but I won't be happy. Let me put it that way. Things will happen.
Mr. President, why are you not putting more pressure on Russia? I know a lot of Europeans would like to see that.
You don't know what pressure I'm putting on Russia. They're dealing. You have no idea what pressure I'm putting on Russia. We're putting a lot of pressure.
Can you maybe tell us that? What kind of pressure are you putting on Russia?
And Russia knows that, and some people that are close to it know, or he wouldn't be talking right now. The Prime Minister understands that better than anybody. He wouldn't be talking right now. He's talking, and we're putting a lot of pressure. I think he wants to make a deal. We're going to find out very soon, but it takes two to tango. And you have to have Ukraine want to make a deal too, and they're being hit very hard. And I do believe they want to make a deal.
Okay, so he says that if Russia doesn't stop bombing Ukraine, that he's not going to be very happy about this, and he doesn't want to answer what he's going to do, but he's not going to be happy. I just don't think Putin gives a damn, to be honest with you. I just don't think he cares. I think he's thinking, who cares what you think? We're at war. We're winning the war. Nothing's going to change. What does it matter to us? Obviously, there might be an incentive there with Trump saying, look, there's a lot of bodies in the fields. The satellite imagery is really terrible. There could be some incentive there for Russia to want to end it because they can't lose any more people. So there is that possibility. But otherwise, it doesn't seem like Putin nor Zelensky are willing to back down from their positions on this. Zelensky, I can understand his frustration and his pushback on this. Again, it doesn't make sense unless he's got a backup plan. But even if he doesn't, if he's just acting on pure emotion, I could understand the emotion. I mean, they've lost hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians. Their country has now portions of it have been annexed by Russia. They should have made a deal and they didn't. They kept fighting, and now it's just going to be a loss all around. And the agreement that the United States has proposed is a loss for Ukraine. It's just Ukraine losing the war. So Ukraine is feeling they don't want to lose. They don't want to have it all for, all of it in vain. And I understand that, but reality is reality. You got to keep going. You got to keep killing people. It's not really working out. But the bottom line is the U.S. is being ignored in this situation. So we all knew that the U.S. was slipping. The power was slipping. There's the rise of BRICS. These countries were coming together, Russia and China coming together. There's a lot of that going on, but this is a real, true manifestation of it really showcasing the loss of power, really showcasing itself. The fact that there is a U.S. sitting president without power, just a lot of talking, saying, this is what I want. It's a good thing what he wants. What he wants is good. But he's being ignored. And the only reason why he's able to be ignored is because America has lost its power and influence in the world. And we might be the last ones to kind of recognize that. All right, now let's talk about China. So Trump's plan to lob extremely high tariffs on China seems to have backfired because Trump is now backpedaling on the 145% tariff.
Earlier today, Treasury Secretary Gusson suggested that with the tariff rates as high as they are now, it's effectively an embargo of trade between the United States and China. Do you see it that way?
That's true. 145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high. It got up to that. We were talking about fentanyl, where, various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high.
What level do you think it will come down to if you have it?
It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero. It used to be zero. We were just destroyed. China was taking us for a ride and just not going to have It's not going to happen. We're going to be very good to China, have a great relationship with President Xi, but they would make billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, and they would build their military out of the United States and what they made, so that won't happen. But they're going to do very well, and I think they're going to be happy, and I think we're going to live together very happily and ideally work together. So I think it's going to work out very well. But no, it's at 145%. It will not be anywhere near that number.
Okay, so that is a backpedal, right? First, it was what did he have it at, like 45% or something? Then it skyrocketed up to 145%, and now he's backpedaling. And that was a big question: who was going to blink first? Well, it looks like Donald Trump actually did blink first. Got to give it to him though; he's a mercurial guy, so he changes his mind a lot. So it doesn't look like he's losing when he changes his mind like this. It just looks like Donald Trump being Donald Trump. So I think it's sort of a safe face. Part of his personality being so mercurial is sort of face saving at this point, because he doesn't really look as much like he lost, I suppose. But I mean, how is she going to explain this? The fact is that he's saying it won't be zero, but it won't be 145%. It's going to come way down. Why is that? Did China cave? Did they have conversations? Is China saying, okay, we're going to make a fair deal? No. In fact, according to the Chinese, they're not having discussions with Trump. They are ignoring Donald Trump. They're not having any discussions, according to the Chinese. They're saying, according to the AP, they said any claims about the progress of China-U.S. trade negotiations are groundless, as trying to catch the wind and having no factual basis, said the Chinese spokesperson. They said China's position is consistent and we are open to consultations and dialogues, but any form of consultations and negotiations must be conducted on the basis of mutual respect and in an equal manner. And they said for the spokesperson, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said today, for all I know, China and the U.S. are not having any consultation or negotiation on tariffs, still less reaching a deal. So they are not talking to us. So why did Donald Trump reduce the tariffs from 145% to not zero? Okay, not zero. What does that mean? 10%, 20%, 5%, not zero, 1%, 0.1%? What is it? He has reduced it drastically because China didn't flinch and Donald Trump has been forced to blink. Why has Donald Trump been forced to blink? Because the tariffs were killing the small businesses. The small businesses having to import the goods from China were having to pay the enormous tariffs. They could not afford it. They were going to have to shut down their businesses. It was clobbering American businesses. And this goes to show that, the notion that that China needs the U.S. Oh, China will do it because China needs the U.S. Do they though? Because they're ignoring any sort of discussion with Donald Trump, ignoring it flat out, not having it. So what does that mean? Does that mean that we, the United States, have believed that we've had this power and we did not notice? It's kind of like when you gain weight. You don't notice it. You don't notice it until you're 200 pounds heavier. And finally you look at yourself in a photograph and you realize, oh my gosh, I've gained a lot of weight. I think that's what's happened to us here, is we've lost a lot of power. We become bloated with our own ego. And in the end, here we are looking at the old photograph and the current photograph, realizing, oh my gosh, nobody's paying any attention to us anymore. We're being flat out ignored. So China is ignoring the United States, and Trump has now flinched. Trump has also said this about China, that he's reiterated, and a lot of people, especially people that voted for him, wanted him to be tough on China. And he's now saying this.
And our country is getting stronger all the time because the other was not sustainable.
But how many times started with China? Are you going to play hardball with them? Are you going to mention COVID?
Well, I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to mention COVID. I'm not going to say, I'm going to play hardball with China. I'm going to play hardball with you, President Xi. No. We're going to be very nice. They're going to be very nice. And we'll see what happens. But ultimately, they have to make a deal because otherwise they're not going to be able to deal in the United States. So
yeah, they're going to have to, or not, or they don't have to make a deal, and we'll just keep reducing the tariffs until we just get back to where we were. I mean, that's the other option. Realizing that, wait a minute, we thought China needed us, but in reality, we might need them. And where does that place us when we start then implementing 145% or even 30% or 20% tariffs that American businesses have to pay? Who does that actually harm? China's saying, we don't care. We've got an entire world to sell to. The population of the world has increased drastically, even in just the last 30 years, 40 years. We got a lot more people to sell to. We've been building up Africa. They're becoming consumer markets. You know what? We don't really need you. Yeah, you guys do consume a lot in the United States. You're big, heavy consumers, but we can replace your consumption with the consumption of the rest of the world combined. All of the Latin American countries, India, you've got plenty of places to go where there's billions and billions of people. So China is not negotiating. And I think that is the big takeaway here. China is ignoring the Trump administration and their attempts to strong arm them with tariffs. And that is saying a lot about where it's a wake-up call, guys. Where are we in the world? How much power do we actually have versus what we think we have? What kind of influence do we have versus what we think we have? And it's all starting to smack us right in the face at this point. It is not looking good. I commend Trump on this, trying. I think these were good attempts at trying. The tariff thing, you could kind of slice out into a few different ways of how he could have dealt with the trade imbalances and manufacturing in America and all that stuff. But the core reasons for this, I think, were the right moves. Definitely with Russia and Ukraine, we absolutely want to see an end to that war. I think Trump's doing the right thing. The problem is, it doesn't matter anymore what Trump was. It doesn't matter anymore what the United States wants. We're becoming completely irrelevant. And these happenings, the peace agreement, the failed peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine and China completely ignoring the United States with the strong arming of tariffs, I think showcases just how much of the power the United States has completely lost. Are you a yo-yo dieter? You diet, you lose weight, but then you gain it all back, plus a few extra pounds. Then later you lose it, and then you regain it again and again. Well, that's dangerous. Studies show yo-yo dieting can increase your risk of heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and other health problems. Breaking free of your yo-yo diet pattern is a main reason doctors created Lean. Lean is a supplement, not an injection. You don't need a prescription. The science behind Lean is really impressive. Its natural ingredients target weight loss in 3 powerful ways. Lean helps maintain healthy blood sugar, it helps control appetite and cravings, and it helps burn fat by converting fat into energy. So listen, if you're tired of losing weight and gaining it back, if you want to lose meaningful weight at a healthy pace, then Lean was created for you. And let me get you started with 20% off when you enter Kim20 at TakeLean.com. That's code Kim20 at TakeLean.com. Thanks for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen Show, which you can check out Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. The show airs live. It is a 1-hour live show Monday through Friday. Just head to KimIversonShow.com. See you there.